We have fact-checked that figure, and that figure takes a look at the people who are coming in and hasn't accounted for the people who have left.
A migrant in a minute is net, but the gross figure is 2.5 million people.
1 in 30 is not there. Children don't come over here and not work, do they?
This is making us poorer. It's very interesting. Everyone says we need net migration for GDP, the size of the national cake, and it's getting worse. And it's getting worse. So look, all I'm arguing is common sense. We're living through a population explosion. We can't cope. It's making us poorer, and our living standards are declining as a result of it.
Did you catch the moment when the BBC host was left speechless? It wasn't just Farage's words that silenced him. It was the weight of a changing political reality. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. As Farage calmly stated, we're living through a population explosion we can't cope with. The atmosphere in the studio shifted. The hosts struggled to respond, reflected a broader question. Is the establishment finally losing its grip on the narrative? Picture a members-only club where the guest list hasn't changed in decades. That's British politics for you. The Conservative and Labour parties have been running the show for so long, they might as well have their names etched on the door.
I do want to kind of clear up figures. What did you get? Every 2 minutes a new home is created for a migrant?
A migrant a minute comes to Britain. A migrant a minute comes to Britain. In fact, it's actually more than that. 2.5 million have come to Britain over the course of the last 2 years. In fact, 1 in 30 people on the streets of Britain today has come in the last 2 years.
Now, that figure, I will say...
Which is extraordinary. Here's the thing. Half of those that have come aren't coming to work. They're coming as dependents.
Where did you get that figure?
52% that have come as dependents. We've even allowed 125,000 people...
Who in the future could work, yeah?
They've set the rules, controlled the narrative, and kept newcomers at arm's length. But here's the thing. This cozy arrangement is starting to show some cracks. Why? Because voters are catching on to the game. They're not just sitting back and accepting the status quo anymore. Let's look at the numbers. Voter turnout has been on a downward spiral for decades. People aren't just apathetic, they're downright disillusioned. They've watched the same faces rotate through different positions of power, regardless of performance or public opinion. It's like a political merry-go-round, and the public is getting dizzy. Enter Nigel Farage and Reform UK. They're not playing by the old rules, and that's exactly the point. Farage's critique of the closed shop isn't just clever rhetoric. It's hitting a nerve with people who feel shut out of the political process. When Farage says voters are tired of being ignored by those in power, he's tapping into a deep well of frustration. But it's not just about feeling ignored.
I'm all for people coming into Britain and British people working abroad. I'm all for it. But the scale on which this is happening is appalling. And for the Conservatives, it is a complete breach.
What's appalling about it?
The Conservatives promised in the last 4 manifestos to reduce the level of net migration. In fact, in 3 of them, they promised to tens of thousands a year. It is now 750,000. That is a complete breach of trust with the British public. And whether we got things right or got things wrong would be down to us. Now, there was a reasonable expectation that we'd tighten up border controls and that fewer people would come. That is why Brexit passed.
The challenges faced by new parties like Reform UK are real and systemic. Traditional media outlets often portray them as fringe movements, making it difficult for them to gain credibility and traction. Farage pointed out that this media portrayal can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, discouraging public support before a new party even gets off the ground. And let's not forget about the internal divisions within the established parties. Farage highlighted how the Conservative Party's inability to deliver on key issues like immigration and economic reform has left many voters feeling betrayed. It's not just traditional Conservatives who are feeling alienated. Swing voters are looking for alternatives too. So, what did Farage mean by calling British politics a closed shop? It's a system designed to protect the status quo, where the same career politicians have shuffled between parties, protecting their power at all costs. This lack of accountability, according to Farage, is a significant factor in the rise of Reform UK. But here's the kicker. Reform UK's growing membership suggests this closed shop might be facing some unexpected competition. The political establishment might find themselves with some uninvited guests at their exclusive party, and who knows, those new faces might just shake things up in ways the old guard never saw coming. Think the political landscape in Britain is as solid as a rock? Think again. We're witnessing the tremors of a seismic shift that could reshape the entire system. Nigel Farage isn't just predicting change, he's betting his political career on it, and the numbers suggest he might be onto something big. Let's break it down. Traditional party loyalties are crumbling faster than a stale biscuit. The old left-right divide that used to neatly sort voters into red or blue boxes, it's about as useful as a chocolate teapot in today's political climate. Brexit wasn't just a vote on EU membership. It was a wrecking ball that smashed through the foundation of British politics, revealing deep fault lines that don't align with the old party boundaries. Now, we're seeing strange bedfellows emerge from the rubble. Working-class voters in former Labour strongholds are finding common cause with disillusioned Conservatives. It's like watching oil and water mix, something that shouldn't happen, but is happening right before our eyes. And at the centre of this political alchemy, Reform UK, with Farage as its outspoken alchemist. Reform UK isn't just another fringe party, they're positioning themselves as the glue that can hold together this new coalition of the disaffected. They're tapping into issues that cross traditional party lines: immigration, economic inequality, and a deep-seated distrust of political elites. It's a potent brew that's attracting voters from across the spectrum. Polling data backs up Farage's bold claims. There's a growing wave of dissatisfaction with the Conservative Party, and many former supporters are jumping ship to Reform UK. Why? Because they see the Tories as failures when it comes to addressing key issues like immigration and economic management. It's not just about being angry, it's about feeling betrayed by broken promises. But here's where it gets really interesting. Farage's appeal isn't limited to disgruntled Conservatives. He's managed to connect with voters across the political spectrum, including those who've traditionally supported Labour. This ability to bridge the gap between seemingly opposite camps underscores the potential for a major realignment in UK politics. So, what's the endgame here? Farage is predicting nothing short of a complete reshuffling of the political deck. He envisions a future where policy positions matter more than party labels, and where outsider movements like Reform UK can gain real power. It's a world where the old guard of British politics might find themselves relegated to the sidelines. The big question now is the British political establishment ready for this level of disruption? Or will they be caught flat-footed, desperately clinging to their outdated playbooks as the ground shifts beneath their feet? One thing's for sure. The political revolution Farage is banking on isn't just coming. It might already be here. The rise of Reform UK isn't just about Nigel Farage or a single political party. It's a symptom of a seismic shift in British politics, one that's been brewing beneath the surface for years. The closed shop of Westminster is facing unprecedented challenges, and the question isn't if change will come, but how dramatic it will be. Recent analyses suggest that Reform UK's growing support isn't confined to traditional Conservative strongholds. They're making inroads with younger voters and in urban areas, territories once thought impenetrable by outsider parties. This demographic shift is sending shockwaves through the political establishment, forcing them to reconsider long-held assumptions about voter loyalty. But don't just keep your eyes on the polls. The real revolution is happening on the streets, in pubs, and across social media. It's being tweeted, shared, and voted for by those who've long felt voiceless in British politics. As one political analyst put it, we may be heading towards a more fragmented political landscape where smaller parties like Reform UK could play a pivotal role in shaping future coalitions and alliances. The old guard of British politics might soon find themselves facing a stark choice: adapt or fade into irrelevance. The coming years promise to be a roller coaster ride for British democracy, with twists and turns that even the most seasoned political observers might struggle to predict. One thing's for certain: the days of the two-party stranglehold on power are numbered, and a new era of British politics is dawning.